All right. Well, Nix Wadden was born on Gower Street. He worked as a reporter at the Muse, the Daily News, CJON, the Telegram, and Harvey's News before moving to Ottawa to take up communications posts with the federal government. Wadden wrote a previous memoir called Yesterday's News. He's now written not a follow-up, but the memoir of what went before his news career, from playing games on Gower Street to summers in Kelligrews, adventures with the Boy Scouts and at university. Nix Wadden was in town for his book launch this week, and I asked him if anyone from his days on Gower Street showed up at the launch.
Actually, the person who lives on 34 Gower Street, where I grew up, was there. Sandra Fowler, her name is.
Okay.
And one of my nieces went by the house, because they used to live there too, about a year or so ago. And she saw them and invited them in.
Oh, nice.
And so we got in touch with each other by email. And so I invited her to the launch, and she came with her daughter, and it was lovely, yeah.
What kind of street was Gower Street when you were growing up there?
Oh, Gower Street was, it was a great place to grow up, because it was a very friendly neighborhood. There was lots of people of the same age, all the families. We all went to the same schools, and we got together frequently, played all kinds of games, played out in the streets.
Yeah.
And went sliding on Cochrane Street, just around the corner from where I grew up. And didn't have any accidents, came close. Traffic, of course, wasn't bad. This was in the 1930s.
You could slide right down into the harbour from Cochrane.
Well, some people did slide all the way down, almost to the harbour, yeah. We usually stopped at least at Duckworth Street.
Right.
Yeah.
Stop for the traffic. It's quite a posh street now. It's pretty gentrified. Was it like that when you were growing up?
No, I never thought of it as such. Funny, somebody was saying they thought that was the rich part of the street, and yet I was talking last night to people who lived on the other end, and were saying that was the rich part. But there were some pretty well-off families on there, but most of them were fairly middle class, I suppose.
Yeah.
2 doors away from us was the Munn family, W.A. Munn.
Right.
And the
Munn Insurance.
Actually the original Mr. Munn there was the author of a book about that basically led to the excavations by Ingstad.
In Lansing
He wrote a
Meadows.
book
Okay.
in that regard. I remember him because, I looked it up there. He died when I was about 9 years old. Big man with great mutton chop whiskers, and I just knew him as Mr. Munn. When his wife married his brother.
Okay.
And and I got to know her mainly because I kept on breaking her windows.
And that was the Republic of Doyle house, right? That's what the house
Exactly,
we know now. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I really got a kick out of watching that show because of that, and because the show was good anyway.
I love the chapter in the book about all the games you guys used to play on Gower Street.
Oh yeah. Hoist your sails and run. After.
Yeah.
Piddly.
Yeah. Was Piddly like Tiddly?
I don't know.
Sort of like cricket?
Actually, it was just 2 sticks. You put a stick on the sidewalk.
Yep.
And flicked it, and went and flicked it as far as you can go. Yeah. Yeah.
What else?
The term has different meaning too, of course.
Yeah.
We played softball. My brother almost broke my nose one time. Hitting what was the nearest thing to a baseball bat. It was a broomstick.
Okay. Gee, you'd have to have some aim to hit anything with a broomstick.
To be sure, yeah. Well, I just stood too close.
You went on to play sports for St. Bon's and for Munn.
Yeah. I was never what you call an athlete at all, but I did learn how to play goal in hockey.
Yeah.
I learned it so well that they forced me to learn how to skate.
Oh, you,
I didn't skate
you
before.
played goal before you skated.
I was rather backward in that regard.
What was St. Bon's like for you?
Oh, St. Bon's, I was at St. Bon's from grade 1 to grade 11, which was norm at the time. And It was good. I enjoyed it. I was a pretty good student. That helped, I guess. But we had good times. We had, like most of the teachers were pretty good. Some were okay. All of them were decent types. We didn't have the misfortunes that later generations did, I'm glad to say.
Yeah.
Some of them could be, hard as nails as far as, and there were people that got their hands strapped quite a bit. I did a few times, not often. I was too meek and mild, I think.
That's good. You spent your summers in Kelligrews with the Tillies.
Yes, the Tillygoos, yeah. No, Kelligrews was something special. We had our own bungalow, which my dad called the shack, and it was a lovely place to live. We had a view of the Conception Bay, and we spent most of our time down by the water, on the water sometimes, in the water occasionally, and playing around in boats. And again, there was a lot of people, a lot of families from St. John's who knew each other that went to Kelligrews. That was the place.
You used to spend your summer out in Kelligrews?
Yes, yeah.
Who were some of the families that you spent the summers with out there?
Well, the families that we had closest relationship were the Ryans. Jimmy Ryan, the father, was vice president of the Newfoundland Railway.
Okay.
And he and my dad were great friends. They used to go fishing together, and were great friends all their lives. And the Armstrongs, Frank Armstrong was another old friend. And but there was a whole bunch of other families that came in a little later on. Roses, Hickeys, a lot of Catholic families, I guess. Surprisingly, a high proportion were.
Yeah.
We all went to the church in Kelligrews, and we all played together and different generations. I was the youngest in my family, and my brothers and sisters played with their opposite numbers in those same families.
Yeah.
We played with each other more so than with local people at the time, which that's just the way things went.
Mm-hmm. Despite hanging out with someone from the railway, you almost got in trouble with the railway one time.
Oh, you mean jumping on and off the train? Mm-hmm. Yes, that was a little sport at the time. Seeing how long you could stay on before jumping off. It had a few nervous moments, but nothing too serious.
There was the one time when your friend, though, thought you had gone under the train.
That was another time. Then when Tom Ryan, his father, as I said, was vice president of the railway. He got us a ride out on the Carbonair branch, as it was in. Yeah. And we went to, we were going along. I looked out the window, and I got a clunker, in my eye, and I was there rubbing away. I had moved away from the others, and I was there for a long time. And I wondered why the train was stopped for such a terribly long time. Until, and finally I got up and went back to see what's going on. And they looked at me like I was a ghost. They thought Tom Ryan had alerted the conductor there that I was lost. I must have fallen off the train. So the train was held up there for, I don't know, an hour or so. At Harbour Main, somewhere around Harbour Main.
Okay.
I couldn't believe it. But he was pretty excitable, Tom, and so we had a good laugh about it afterwards.
Nix, what's your real name?
It's Nicholas.
Oh, Nicholas. Okay.
It's Nix is short for Nicholas, and
but Nix with an X.
It's a thing I inherited from my father.
Okay.
His name was Nicholas, and he was called Nix by.
Okay.
And it's a funny thing because it seems to be unique to St. John's or to Newfoundland because and in that generation because I knew a number of other people whose name was a Nix Lynch.
Okay. All of them with an X?
Yes, all with an X. Yeah, and but it doesn't seem to occur anymore,
right.
Or anywhere else. So I guess if you got to have a claim to fame, you might as well. That's as good as any.
Did you use that in your byline, Nix? Or were you Nicholas Wadden in your byline when you were a journalist?
Oh, no, I was, my family, my first name is Ronald, and many of my family always called me that, and some still do. Nicholas was my second name,
Okay.
But most of my friends call me Nix. Although it's funny, when my wife Madeline and I were first going out, we were coming out of a movie theater one night, and she was really surprised. One person came and said, "Hello, Ron," and the next person, just a moment later, said, "Hello, Nix." So what's going on?
Multiple identities.
Yes.
And when did you decide to write this book?
Oh, I didn't think of writing books at all, until after I retired. I retired in '94. I was always conscious of the fact that there were so many books being written in Newfoundland, published in Newfoundland, and many by people I knew. Mm-hmm. The one that struck me particularly was Frank Kennedy, who was an ex-CBC photographer, and I knew him and worked with him briefly. Well, I knew him at the Daily News. Mm-hmm. And Frank did, 2 books about his life and times, and many others did too. So I got the idea, maybe I'll do it. I ended up writing 2 books. The first one was about my days as a newsman. Yesterday's News was the title. Right. In fact, part of what is in this book was part of my initial manuscript for that. Okay. But it was too long, and so we broke it down. Just kept that on the media. And so after that was done, I thought I'd better, I thought there might be a book in these earlier ramblings, so I guess I got one. I was very fortunate to get Flanker Press to publish it.
It's great. You remember so many people's names, family names and stuff. You must have a really good memory.
It's funny. It never occurred to me at the time, and when they did the production, and they said that they had an index of 12 pages. I couldn't believe it.
So if you want to see if your family's mentioned, you got to go to the back.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, perfect. It's all there. All the Drovers and Doyles and Kellys and Crawfords, everyone. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's Nix Wadden. His newest book, a memoir, is called Gower Street. It's published by Flanker Press.